name is Melanie Sakoda. I am the Survivor Support Coordinator for SNAP, and SNAP is the Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests. Now, the name is a little bit of a misnomer now. We started out originally working with exclusively Catholic survivors, but now we work with any survivor of clergy sexual abuse or abuse in religious institutions. SNAP is actually a very small nonprofit. We have 2 full-time employees, our executive director, Zach Heiner, and our fundraiser, whose name is eluding me. I know his first name is Patrick Price. And I work part-time as a survivor support coordinator. We have a bookkeeper, and we have Zach as an assistant who also works part-time. That's the extent of our paid employees. All the other work, all the other local leaders are all volunteers. They are either survivors, family members of survivors, or we have a few that are just concerned citizens. There are about somewhere between maybe 150 and 200 volunteer leaders around the world. And I think it's very common for those who are in positions of authority in churches to try to keep allegations quiet. I'm not sure why they do this, but the only semi-reasonable explanation I've heard is that, oh, well, if we let people know, it will hurt people's faith, or it will keep people from converting to our religion. And that may be true, but I think it's more damaging if parishioners find out that this has been hidden from them, and particularly if someone else has been hurt because the church decided to keep quiet. It's also not unusual to find accused clergy continuing in ministry, and it's unfortunately not unusual to find accused clergy who have a lot of support from parishioners who are not involved in the abuse. I think it's really hard for people to realize that the church that they're going to express their religious beliefs may not be a safe place. It's sort of a disconcerting position to be in, and it's hard for people to accept. It's easier to accept that the people who are accusing the ministers are lying, mentally ill, on drugs, whatever they choose to believe. And I think over the course of those 30 plus years, what we've seen is that initially people were reluctant to believe that this happened. As time has gone on, you had in 2002, you had the Boston Globe expose that's kind of memorialized in the Spotlight movie. And then in 2018, you had the Pennsylvania grand jury report. And so in this country, I think both of those 2 major media events have made people aware that no, it does happen. And I think one of the things that some people decided was, well, that was Boston, that doesn't happen elsewhere. And I think what the Pennsylvania grand jury report showed was that in another diocese. And I think at that point in time, it began to loosen up people's ideas that maybe this wasn't just a Boston problem, just an American problem. Maybe this was a worldwide problem for the Catholic Church in this sense. The survivors have propelled the movement forward, particularly after the Spotlight movie. I think they were invigorated, and the same thing happened again after the Pennsylvania grand jury report. And it showed them that there was progress. It was slow and not as fast or as deep as we might have wished, but it was there. And I think that encouraged people to keep working on this issue. The reason why I think Church 2 kind of exploded was for 2 reasons. Number one, as I said, the work that SNAP had done in promoting awareness of sexual abuse in religious institutions. And the other thing I think possibly is maybe the women's movement in this country. And all of a sudden, I think the women that had been abused in religious situations related to that. And so it was just kind of like, okay, all these people are listening now. Let's speak up. And, you know, I think the more people spoke up, it just, you know, because you saw that you weren't alone, that you weren't the only one that had been through that kind of an experience, whether you experienced it as an adult or a child. This is true of not all, but most of our members have come not to want to be a part of an institutional church. Many of them remain spiritual, you know, but not religious. Truthfully, I don't foresee myself going back to a church, but if I did, it would have to be a church where truth and accountability come first before the church. To me, the church is not the clergy, the church is not the buildings. The church is the community of believers who come together to worship. If you don't have truth and accountability, then you're not protecting the church, which is that community. And that's what you need to protect. So that would be my ideal church. What I would say to all of you is, you know, keep doing what you're doing, keep pressing, keep trying to expose abusers, keep trying to keep the survivors connected. And the one important lesson, though, which you may not have thought of because you guys are young, not old like me, but you're in a marathon. So if there comes a time, you know, a point in your life where you need to focus on school or family or health, you can step back and you sort of, if you have a group of you, it'll be okay if you step back because the others are still moving forward. And then when you can rejoin when you're able. Self-care is very important, particularly if you are a survivor that's involved in this movement. It's difficult to listen to stories, terrible stories of abuse. And if it's hard for you, then step back. Do what's best for you. Don't go so far in that you burn yourselves out. You know, pace yourselves. This is not easy and it's not instant.